has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, good news this morning. If you haven't heard yet, of course, Danelo Cavalcante is in custody, captured. You can see the police in camouflage gear posing for pictures with him. Wonderful that this guy is no longer posing a threat to this community. A 14-day manhunt. And I'm going to go to a live feed right now so we can actually be on the scene and see what's going on and watch it ourselves as it develops.
This is Avondale Barracks. Now, Aliana, I heard you talking about seeing blood on Cavalcante. I don't know if the blood that you're speaking of is specifically from this, but I do have confirmed that he was bit by one of the canine units that did find him. Again, telling me that he was also confirmed wearing an Eagle sweatshirt, a gray Eagle sweatshirt. And that has to be probably a new piece of clothing that he acquired too, because if you remember on Monday night, they found some of his discarded clothing near that homeowner's residence on Covetreeville Road after that homeowner fired several shots at him. So they weren't sure if he meant to discard that clothing or if he just, in a panic ran. And last night was significantly cooler over the past 14 days. Must have gotten that sweatshirt along the way. He also the other day, of course, stole those work boots as well. So again, he was found just after 8 o'clock is when those teams moved in there. Canine unit sniffed him out. He was hiding under foliage and also logs. And that is when at some point canine dogs bit him. And he was taken into custody. So and if you see that armored vehicle there, I was actually told something by a member of law enforcement the other day when I saw a number of those tactical units, and they use a lot of those. I hope my
Annie, just one second. Stand by 1 second. We are getting our first picture of Danelo Cavalcante during his capture this morning by state police and law enforcement officials. This is it here. Annie was just talking about that gray Eagle sweatshirt. You see him there. He's still wearing those pants from the Chester County prison, the work boots that perhaps were stolen. But there is our first look at the escaped inmate, Danelo Cavalcante, being captured by police this morning, looking very disheveled.
In fact, if you knew nothing of the context of this picture, you'd say this person looks like they've been on the run for 14 days. And in fact, that is what he looks like. His clothes look like they're rain-soaked, muddy. His hair is disheveled, and it's all over his...
Folks, funny, but yeah, what would you expect someone to look like when they're out in the woods for 14 days, This is great news. No matter which way the press wants to steer this story, wants to spin this story, he's caught, and law enforcement took a lot of heat of why it took so long. And the most important thing is now they can spike the football. They can celebrate. They caught this guy. Now the community can be at rest. Now the community can go back to their day-to-day chores, their day-to-day jobs. Kids can go back to school. Stores can reopen without the fear of some fugitive coming into your house and trying to kill everyone in your family.
His face.
Let's go
and
back
the
to the live.
expression. What little we can see of it right now looks like a man who has been worn out by the constant surveillance, the constant searching, and the constant work that our law enforcement teams have been taking over these past 14 days. And they finally got their guy, and thank goodness, no one, even on the police side or just any of the residents surrounding these search areas, no one has been hurt.
And you have to imagine, knowing now that he's armed with that 22 caliber rifle that he stole from that garage, law enforcement had to approach with caution, knowing that he's armed, but had to catch him in a vulnerable spot, which it sounds like he was.
Yeah, so back to Chopper 6 now. That's the armored vehicle. This is the probably one of the most secure transport vehicles that one could find to take a prisoner who not only broke out of a jail in the state of Pennsylvania in Chester County, but also managed to elude authorities in another country, in Brazil, where he's suspected of.
Look, there is no doubt that this guy, Danelo Cavalcante, had survival skills. And we will find out more as the investigation, we hear about all of the investigative information that they didn't release during this. Tom Cusinelli, retired NYPD captain, not a scratch on him, but back in the day, he would have got a beating. That's for sure, Captain Tom. But the other thing is at least he got a bite on the top of his head by a canine unit. You know, this guy was costing the system $1 million a day. And I know there's someone out there in the chat who choose to focus on the negative. Oh, why did it take 14 days? They got him, all right? They got him. They had 400, 500 cops a day. Does that say incompetence? Absolutely not. I mean, it says how difficult this was. These are some of the best people at their jobs. Fugitive enforcement, the U.S. Marshals, the Pennsylvania State Police. Incompetence in this belongs to corrections. From the top down, there was incompetence. How he got to escape, the second escape in 4 months. That's where the ire of the public belongs.
Committing another murder. Danelo Cavalcante is waiting in traffic right now on this Wednesday morning, headed to the State Police Barracks in Avondale, where he will be processed, where he'll be checked out, and they will go from there. And should hear during this news conference at 9:30 what their plans are, where he might go next. I can guarantee it's not the Chester County Prison in Pocopson Township.
Definitely not. They're likely going to send him somewhere much farther away, because clearly in the Chester County.
It was said early on that when he gets caught, he's going directly to a state prison. He's not going to the Pocopson County prison or jail, if you will, where he escaped from. That would be ridiculous. Yeah, people are always saying, Schmitty, you know something, you're right. Schmitty, can't stand when people say that. Been watching other live streams and chat. People were saying law enforcement failed. Good grief, that burns me. Schmitty, you're 100% right. First of all, there's a lot of idiots that are content creators on YouTube that couldn't find their own ass with two hands, and they're criticizing the police. That's a police expression. You know, can't find your own ass with two hands. But that's what a lot of these content creators on YouTube and a lot of these people in the press, they're looking for controversy. Most of them are cowardly little journalists, and but they want to. That the Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens, you could tell by looking at him, he was a consummate professional, and he wasn't getting shaken by these stupid questions by the journalists.
Prison. One of the things that we saw during this process is that he was trying to make contact with previous roommates, acquaintances, anyone in the area still where he escaped, which is just a few miles away from the prison. So he was.
So yes, Danelo Cavalcante, the most important thing that we need to know right now is that he's caught. He's caught, and he's not going to hurt anyone. He's not going to cost law enforcement and the people of this great area $1 million a day to capture him. So it's a good day. It's a good day, and it's a positive day. And of course, there will be those who will be looking at the negative side of this, and there always is. And we'll discount what they say because most of them are buffoons anyway.
Tremendous equipment, go invest in it so these things don't happen, and train your people well. And that's the whole thing with these things. It's training and it's investment in technology so these things don't happen. We don't have the heist that we used to have all these years ago. We don't have any of those things because we've infused technology into these things. That has to be looked at as well. How can we make this lockdown even more? Additionally, he's a high-profile inmate. He's murdered a woman, stabbed him numerous times. So there has to be a higher degree of supervision on these individuals. They have the most to lose.
And Robert, in terms of next steps, what happens here? 2 weeks on the run, you finally apprehend an armed and dangerous suspect. He was already in prison for murder. So now what?
The after action critique is the big thing. What went wrong? What went right? And how can we do better going forward? So there has to be a deep dive into that. And so this individual's now put away. And you see that we really got off easy on this. He could have hurt somebody. And we don't even know exactly his whereabouts because he didn't have a phone on. These are the tracking devices that law enforcement uses. So this is something else now. It's not over. They're going to redouble their efforts and see where he disturbed something, where he took something. That shirt means something. Where did he get it? Any other clothing he has and things like that. Where else did he eat? What was his resources available to him? Did anybody else see him now? Did they see him on television? Exactly what he looks like now.
And it looks like they may be close to arriving at the police barracks where he was expected to be transported. Bob, what goes into the decision now of where to hold him next?
This is NYPD retired Chief of Detectives Bob Boyce, a real competent voice for law enforcement, one of the best talking heads they have out there right now.
Someone escapes from a prison, where do you put them after that to ensure it doesn't happen again?
Oh, sure. That's an easy one. He'll go into max lockdown 23 hours a day. And that's what's going to happen to this individual. So they'll keep a close eyes on him. They may at some point, when he is where he's directed to go afterwards, to put him in special incarceration. So that's what I'm saying right now. He's an escaped prisoner. He successfully escaped for 2 weeks. So that's a problem. And they'll put him in something like that. He's a very agile individual. He's a gifted physically guy, even though he's not a big man. He'll be able to crab walk up that building. It's no small issue for anybody. So that's, you have to factor into that as well.
And we're now seeing them bringing Danilo Cavalcante out of that vehicle after he was taken into custody. 2 weeks on the run. It looks like they might have one of those reflective blankets on him to keep him warm, but they've just pulled him out of the police vehicle and are now escorting him into the police barracks. Again, we are waiting a press conference with the details on his arrest at any moment. That's the podium that you're seeing right now. So we're going to bring you that as soon as we get it. But Brad, you said from here he's going to go. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. Robert, you say from here he's going to go into a maximum security prison. Paint the picture for us of what that looks like, how you ensure that this man who not only escaped from prison, but managed to evade police over and over again over the course of 2 weeks, and how they go about ensuring that he can't get out again.
It looks like they're about to, they're getting the crew together for this press conference. It'll be interesting to hear the TPO, the time, place of occurrence, where they caught him, how they caught him, what brought them to the area. All those things that, this has been like a blow by blow. People out in the woods and nothing was happening. And they were like, oh my God, a lot of these people being dramatic when nothing dramatic was happening. But now something really dramatic has happened. He's gotten caught. And all of us want to hear how that occurred.
Yes, as I said before, they have abilities here to look down at locations, lockdown locations, in places where he'll have a 24-hour supervision. He'll have cameras on him the entire time. More than likely, for some period of time, he'll be in lockdown 23 hours a day. And so you know where he is at all times, and that's the issue here. He'll be moved from one small box to a little larger box, back to that one small box again, because this can't happen again. And also understand that he can defeat normal prison yards. He'll be able to get out of it and move along that way. So he planned this out. This is not something that you see an opportunity arises and you bolt out of police custody. This is something quite different. He escapes from a facility, a secure facility. So that is the big issue here. How do we make these facilities even more secure and put him under max observation and lockdown?
And Robert, we're now hearing from a source familiar with the investigation that Danilo Cavalcante was apprehended by a Border Patrol tactical unit. What does that tell you about the all-hands-on-deck approach to this search for him?
Yeah, so I'm not surprised to hear that. They're excellent. And when they bring him in, bring him in to certain locations, it's all in on this, all the hands on deck, if you will. They'll bring in their special resources, the most highly trained people. Those tactical people that train all the time, very similar to something like special forces that you see. And they'll train for this. They'll understand.
I love that they're posing for photographs for the old tactical team scrapbook posing with one of our captures. It's like catching a big fish when you go fishing. Let's take a picture of the big fish.
And the search patterns, they'll understand how difficult it is, and also apprehending someone who doesn't want to come to jail. And knowing that putting that in their head that this male has a rifle of any kind changes everything. So I think he was drawn down on and he surrendered after this. But we'll see what they say, because I'm really interested in this point, exactly how they made the apprehension. You bring in your best, and you bring in your A teams, if you will, and that seems what happened here.
And we are awaiting this press conference from Pennsylvania State Police and other officials. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see that press conference. They're starting to assemble. On the right-hand side, Danilo Cavalcante, the escaped murderer who's been on the run for nearly 2 weeks now in police custody. Morgan Norwood is there in Kennett Square. Morgan, as we await this press conference, just bring us up to speed on the timeline and how we got here.
Yeah, so 14 days at this point. Danilo Cavalcante, up until this point, had been on the run, escaped from a Pennsylvania prison, Chester County facility to be exact. He had scaled up that wall, doing sort of like a crab walk. Basically, he was able to get over razor wire, and was able to evade.
She's just describing how he escaped. We all know that. We've seen it a million times. He crab walked up that wall. He had a lookout, making sure that he would be warned by another tattooed inmate. He had a towel that appeared in the back of his waistband to defeat the razor wire that was at the top. So if that doesn't show premeditation in what he was doing, I don't know what does. But it was an amazing sort of athletic feat to be able to crab walk up that wall. And the disturbing thing about that was that another inmate did that on May 19th. And instead of the prison making that area a much higher security area, they didn't really do anything other than put additional razor wire at the top. And clearly that didn't work, because he defeated that with a towel. You want to defeat razor wire? Bring a towel with you. And that's what he did. And from there on, we know this has been a 14-day escape and a survival that he could probably write a survival book on it.
Police for, again, a number of days, almost 2 weeks now. But really,
all right, we know. I'm going to wait till the press conference because she's annoying me. So yes, he survived for 2 weeks out there, breaking into homes. We all remember the individual who flicked the light switch, which I found ridiculous, because here he was, his wife and his 2 children in his home. And that was his defense of his home, flicking a light switch. It sounds like a real, anti-Second Amendment person. The only switch he should have heard was the slide of the 9mm going back, And thank God nothing happened. Thank God he survived that little light switch flicking. And as he had said, Danelo Cavalcante flicked the light switch back. How? What a moment of solidarity between the escaped felon and you and your family. No, you're not. I was horrified when I heard that, and I was very thankful that gentleman and his family survived that, because it could have been much, much worse. And I don't think that that gentleman really understands evil and the level of violence that that little fella there would absolutely use to get away. And luckily, what we saw on the part of law enforcement was unbelievable manpower, unbelievable talent. And for all the buffoons who are criticizing law enforcement, you put on some green camouflage and you go into the woods and you go get them. You find them and you see how well you'll do.
Things kind of, took a turning point was over the weekend when, police, said that they had him within that 4 square mile perimeter. They learned that
we heard so many times from, of course, Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens. We heard about perimeters. We heard about he was locked down in a perimeter. And then what occurred was he stole that van. And there goes that perimeter, sort of blown to smithereens. He got out of the perimeter, 30 miles, 40 miles outside the perimeter. Now it's almost like you have to retool the entire search, design an all-new perimeter, or if you even have a perimeter at that point. Yes, Jacqueline Johnson, that pint-sized perp. That's right. that I could use more peas too. That that pint size. I don't know. I can't think of it right now, but there's certainly a lot of them. But 5 foot tall, 120 pounds, and look what he put law enforcement through during this 14-day search for this 2-time murderer. And again, when we think of that, a 2-time murderer, I always mention this guy on the screen right now, Gonzalo Lopez, who we know escaped from even looks scary, escaped from a Texas prison. And just the ending to that was really horrific. Everything about his escape was incompetence by the Texas Correctional Facility, by the local police, by the Texas Correctional Facility's public relations guy. It was just total incompetence. And when I think of this case, it just makes me mad because he wound up killing a family of 5. And then the U.S. Marshals killed him. And this could have easily have ended that way. And thank God it did not, because they did what we would call in law enforcement as a full court press. They spared no expense, and they went after him with everything they had. And look, he's caught now. And can people complain and say, oh, law enforcement? Well, they're always going to have people out there that are going to say that. And, those people, what I would like to say to them is you throw on a camouflage suit, you strap a 9mm and a long gun, and you go into those woods and you see how well you do, because all you are is a lot of hot air, And when I would listen to the press conferences and hear some of the questions that Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens had to field, I understood he's a professional and he knew how to field them. I could see that he was getting a little annoyed with some of their questions. And hopefully we'll have all the answers to what occurred.
He was able to breach that, ended up 25 miles north in Phoenixville. There was a sighting there.
All right, I can't listen to this lady. It's like you think you're in broadcasting, you'd have a better voice than that. That's driving me crazy. So we know what occurred. Yeah, we all want to hear what, how, and all the play-by-play on how he got caught today. And they're saying, some people saying, oh, he was bleeding from his head. Good. Apparently a canine bit him on the top of the head. What I'm really happy about, and what most people should be happy about, is that no one in law enforcement got hurt, in apprehending this guy. Everyone in law enforcement is okay. Everyone now can go home. Everyone can get some rest. And he's going to be tucked away in a maximum security prison as they begin to process him now at the state police barracks. I mean, this also says something, and without getting political, he was in this country illegally. That's not being said enough. So how do we vet these people? How do we vet these people that are career criminals, that cross our border and live among us? And our politicians, they don't care. They just, all they care about is their next election. And that's on both sides. It's Democrats and Republicans. Nothing has been done about immigration reform. And you have these dangerous people crossing into our country, and he is a perfect example now of that. So you need a country with borders. You need, look who caught him. It turns out Border Patrol caught him because they're so good at this. They're tactically, they train all the time. Paul Mignot, in the hierarchy of prisoners, he'll be a legend for at least a few years. He will not be in general population, if ever. Paul, you're right, but something? For the 1 hour a day he's out of his cell, let him bask in the limelight, if that's what he thinks limelight is, because, I'd also like to know, is he at some point, I don't think that our country would want to deport him and risk him escaping again in Brazil. They have him, and now he's going to probably do the rest of his life in prison. But how are they going to address the murder that he committed in Brazil? Patricia Siebold, I hope all the residents in this area get a fantastic night's sleep tonight. I was in LA when Richard Ramirez was spotted in our area. It was absolutely terrifying. Patricia, Richard Ramirez, I covered that case. I actually interviewed one of the detectives, Gil Carrillo, that actually retired from the LAPD as a lieutenant, a homicide commander. And that was one of the worst, Richard Ramirez, one of the worst humans, if you could even call him a human, that I had ever read about or heard about and studied the case. Just horrific. And he was on the loose for quite a long time and instilled a lot of fear into that community. And he was caught on the street. And too bad the crowd didn't beat him to death. I think they would have if people hadn't pulled him off, because he was the devil. Diablo is what they called him, And Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, horrible, horrible case. And he died of cancer before they could really pick his brain and see what made this individual tick. And so, folks, here are some of the stills of the apprehension. And those gentlemen in the camouflage are from Border Patrol. So we have a total law enforcement, bipartisan, as they like to say in politics, cooperation, where they were able to get all facets, all arms of law enforcement to cooperate in this case. And there's nothing better than to see this guy in handcuffs, to see him in handcuffs, in custody, and not able to hurt anyone.
Yesterday, police also announced that he was able to, walk into someone's garage and take a firearm. There was a...
Oh, my God. I'll wait till the press conference. She's just reiterating a lot of the things. Yeah, we know he was trolling all kinds of homes, and that's what made him so dangerous. He had to eat day to day. He had to obtain water. He had to hide out during the day, move stealthily during the nighttime. So, yeah, we know all of this stuff. And what we really don't know right now, of course, is talks to angels. People said he shaved his head, but it appears he didn't, unless in those still photos, talks to angels, he had his hair somehow tucked underneath his hoodie. No, it doesn't, Yeah, he must have. He must have had it tucked under his hat and tucked under his hoodie, because obviously there he is with all that hair. Could he have pinned it up and had it? Because he totally looks different than he did on those still images. That's for sure. So, again, folks, just to recap, he's caught. This was the day 14. It appears that, from what we've heard, Border Patrol caught him. A canine unit bit him on the top of the head. Apparently, he was bleeding when they apprehended him. I don't know any of the other details, whether they recovered the .22 caliber rifle. But all these other details were awaiting the press conference to hear exactly what happened. Okay, the press conference I'm being told is on.
Homeowner who shot at him, and then of course reported what he saw, what happened to police. But it was that sighting that really served as the pivotal moment for police. They were able to get a number, of things that would help them ultimately in this investigation in terms of evidence. I mean, left behind the sweatshirt, there were footprints. Those footprints, gave them a trail to the shoes, and then the shoes ultimately gave the dog the scent. And then from there, they were able to get sort of a confined perimeter that we hadn't seen in a number of days, since the whole situation.
Yeah, one of those things.
He was apprehended this morning with no shots fired. I want to say thank you to the dedicated law enforcement professionals from every level who each and every day go out of their homes, leave their families, leave their loved ones to keep us safe. The public, over the last 13 days, has had a chance to see what excellence in law enforcement means. what true dedicated professionalism is all about. I couldn't be more proud to be standing up here today with these professionals from every level. And while they did extraordinary work, we had a tremendous assist from the public here in Chester County. I want to say thank you to the public for their vigilance. Thank you for the constructive tips that they shared. Thank you for remaining on guard. We recognize this has been a concerning and trying time for each and every one of you in the region. We want to thank you for your support of law enforcement and for your support of this effort that led to this capture today. I hope the good people of Pennsylvania, and indeed the folks all across this nation, got a chance to see how government is supposed to work, how law enforcement is supposed to work, where we all come together, where we focus on the mission. And while the women and men up here behind me may wear different uniforms and different badges, we were here with common purpose, and that was to apprehend this suspect and keep people safe. Leading this effort has been the Pennsylvania State Police. And I know I'm going to get booed by some of the folks behind me for saying this. I believe they are the finest law enforcement agency in the United States of America. And I could not be more proud to be the governor of this Commonwealth and to have the chance to serve in public service alongside these great leaders in the Pennsylvania State Police. Leading the effort for us is Colonel Christopher Paris, who did yeoman's work overseeing this operation together with Lieutenant Colonel Bivens. All Pennsylvanians, gentlemen, are indebted to you for your bravery, for your courage, and for your tremendous leadership. Peace, Colonel Christopher Paris.
Thank you, Governor. I would like to make a few brief comments. I'd like to dedicate those comments to the victims of Cavalcante and their families. At the end of the day, all of the people behind me here work for justice and for the victims. A close second to the people of Chester County. We appreciate your support, and we appreciate the dedication that you have shown us and the generosity that you have shown us. We are in your debt. This was a major operation. We know that it has affected your lives, and we're very much appreciative of that support. I'd like to thank the governor and his support of us, not only with his physical presence, but his work in Harrisburg on a daily basis. I'd like to thank the Border Patrol, Customs, the FBI, the Marshals, the ATF, our federal partners, the Chester County District Attorney, Deb Ryan, and her Chief County Detective, Dave Sassa. Our municipal partners, too numerous to mention here, in Chester, Montgomery, Delaware, and Bucks counties. We could not have done this without everyone. I would like to thank, from the bottom of our hearts, the members of the Pomar Lynn Fire Company. I know the media has been in and out of here. The hospitality that they have shown us, the logistics that you need to bring to bear in an operation like this, we would have been hard-pressed to do that without them being good hosts to us. Lastly, but certainly not least in any way, shape, or form, to the women and men of the Pennsylvania State Police, thank you. Thank you for your hard work and your diligence. This is my third manhunt with Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens. It's not lost on me that it was 9 years to the day yesterday for the Blooming Grove ambush. And in all of those operational cycles, there is no person who enjoys more of my trust and confidence. He was tasked with standing this operation up. My confidence in him is marrow deep. He is the consummate professional. And I would now like to turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Bivens to give you the operational rundown of the capture of Cavalcante. Lieutenant Colonel Bivens.
This guy did an unbelievable job, Lieutenant Colonel Bivens. Just incredible.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Colonel. It is a true pleasure to stand here this morning and talk to all of you about bringing this manhunt to a successful conclusion and without getting anyone else hurt, most importantly. None of this would be possible without the support of this team represented by members of various agencies standing with us up here, by others standing throughout this fire hall, and by still more who are out there in the field. So let me give you a few details about how this unfolded. As you know, we have been working most recently in a perimeter established in northern Chester County. Last night, shortly after midnight, a series of events started to unfold. First, we had a burglar alarm at a residence near Prizer Road within the perimeter. Our people investigated that, did not find Cavalcante there or anyone else, but it started to bring some of our people into that area. We had been searching an area not far from there already with some tactical teams that night. There was an aircraft overhead utilizing FLIR technology, and close to 1 a.m. picked up a heat signal that they began to track. It was west of PA 100 and north of Prizer Road. Tactical teams began to converge on that location where the heat source was moving. Unfortunately, we had a weather system that also came in, and we had lightning that was flashing all around, and it caused the aircraft to have to depart the area. Tactical teams made a decision to secure that area, that smaller area, as best they could, and hold it through the storm and until we could bring additional resources in and bring aircraft back overhead to ensure that we did not have an issue with an escape. That resumed early this morning, and shortly after 8 a.m., tactical teams converged on the area where the heat source was. They were able to move in very quietly. They had the element of surprise. Cavalcante did not realize he was surrounded until that had occurred. That did not stop him from trying to escape. He began to crawl through thick underbrush, taking his rifle with him as he went. One of the Customs and Border Control teams, BORTAC, had a dog with them. They released the dog. Some of our PSP CERT members were also there, had him surrounded. The dog subdued him, and team members from both of those teams immediately moved in. He continued to resist, but was forcibly taken into custody. No one was injured as a result of that. Excuse me. He did sustain a minor bite wound. We had medical personnel at the scene, and they took a look at that. Cavalcante was, as I said, taken into custody. He was transported to our Avondale station for further processing and interview, and he will ultimately be transferred to a state correctional institute where he will be housed and begin to serve his life sentence. In just a few minutes, I'll open this up to some questions, but before I do that, I want to turn this over to one of our very close partners, District Attorney Deb Ryan. I know she would like to say a few words, and again, then we'll be happy to take your questions following that. Deb.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Bivens. Today is a great day here in Chester County. Our nightmare is finally over and the good guys won. We owe a debt of gratitude to all of the first responders for their tireless and dedicated efforts in bringing this fugitive to justice. They worked around the clock, and we are deeply grateful to all of them. Our community can finally regain its normalcy and breathe a collective sigh of relief. This would not have happened without the collaboration and efforts on behalf of a multitude of agencies. I need to thank the Governor, Colonel Paris, Lieutenant Colonel Bivens for his unflappable and dedicated leadership, the U.S. Marshals, the Chester County Detectives, the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, the Department of Emergency Services, the Sheriff's Department, and every single person who went out into the field in the most horrendous conditions. We had weather problems, we had terrain problems, and and a ton of obstacles that prevented our capture from occurring as expediently as we wanted. We have the best people in the business, and we never lost faith that this capture would occur. We knew that it was just a matter of time. The scope of this manhunt was extremely impressive. The brave men and women who went out there every single day are our heroes. And I am proud to be a part of this collective team of people who worked around the clock to bring this man to justice during this monumental challenge. They utilized every piece of advanced technology, dogs, drones, helicopters, every asset available was put out for this capture. I can't express our gratitude deep enough to all of them and to the community for their support. We received dozens and dozens of donations, well wishes, and kind support from everyone in the community, and we thank this firehouse for housing us. We know we disrupted their lives for a while. One of the first calls we made upon learning about this capture was to the Brandow family, who, as you can imagine, had been living in a complete nightmare. They are so grateful to the men and women who helped with this capture. They can now finally sleep again. I can't thank law enforcement enough for their efforts. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will be happy to take your questions. Yes.
With the helicopter overboard, we saw the arrest taking place. There was some criticism about the photo op that was taken with the fugitive. Can you
Oh
explain how
my
that's
God,
actually a
this guy
standard
should just
procedure?
shut up.
What's the reasoning behind the photo op with the fugitive?
I'm aware that there was a photo op that was taken out there. Those men and women worked amazingly hard through some very trying circumstances. They're proud of their work. I'm not bothered at all by the fact that they
Exactly.
took a
Shut up, that
photograph with him in
journalist.
custody. Again, they're proud of their work. They kept the community safe. I say thanks to them and good job.
Sir, did he say anything the moment that he was captured, and you released the name of the canine officer who bit him during his capture?
We will probably not be releasing the name. And in terms of anything that he said, we need to use an interpreter, and he has been taken back to the station. And at that point, we will attempt to interview him at the Avondale station.
Did he say anything upon capture?
I'm not aware of it. If he did, I don't have that information.
Lieutenant Colonel, your officers were authorized to use lethal force if he didn't actively surrender. Was the goal to always take him in alive?
That's always our first choice and preference. Again, that option is only to prevent the escape of a very dangerous individual. Had they not been able to contain him, that would have remained an option.
Who specifically made the arrest? Which organization?
It was a combination. It was a combined group of the Border Patrol and PSP.
At 1 o'clock captured. When he went into the van, he was stripped and had his tattoos photographed. Is that normal procedure?
Yes.
When the thermal imaging happened at 1 o'clock, was he in the same location when you found him?
Wait, I'm sorry. You'd ask first, man.
Was he asleep when you found him?
He was proned out. I've not been told that he was asleep. I'm told that he was proned out trying to hide and then began to crawl away.
Was it the same location when you got the thermal imaging at 1, when you found him at 8?
It was in that close proximity to that, yes.
What was anyone helping him?
No one was assisting him at that point.
Sir, what was the agency that was flying the helicopter that first spotted the heat?
That was the DEA, and that was a fixed wing aircraft.
Were you worried as law enforcement that you had to down the plane and there could be another chance for escape? I mean, that's obviously the plane had to land, but what kind of risk did you have to calculate?
Well, as I've told you throughout this investigation, there are always things we have to contend with. Everything isn't scripted and doesn't go perfectly. And so it's just another challenge. Worried, I don't think is the word that I would use. We simply had to adapt. And so we secured that inner perimeter while always keeping our outer perimeter secure, so that if he did manage to get out of that inner, we would box him in yet again.
How tough an adversary was he? He led some very high-profile, difficult manhunts. How tough an adversary was he compared to some of the others?
I don't know that he was particularly skilled. He was desperate, and I've said that all along. You have an individual whose choice is go back to prison and spend the rest of your life in a place you don't want to be, or continue to try and evade capture. He chose the evade capture. He was in good shape, obviously able to climb, as you saw, to get out of prison. But ultimately, as I said all along, we had an amazing team assembled here, capabilities that are just very formidable. And I was confident all along that he would eventually be captured. And ultimately, this team, and I credit all of them for bringing together their collective experience, the resources, and being able to apply that and capture him. It's never easy to find someone who doesn't want to be found in a very large area.
Previously, you said you were reserving comment on if anybody was helping him throughout the search. I know you said no one helped him this morning. Can you say now that he's in custody whether he received help these last 13 days?
There were people who were intent and intended to assist him. We had been successful, to the best of my knowledge, we had been successful in preventing that assistance from reaching him.
Does that include his sister?
Yes.
There had been some frustration, some criticism from the public as this was stretching on. Now that it's over, do you consider this anything other than a success?
No, it was absolutely a success. And I got to tell you, I think by and large, the public stayed amazingly
Keith
supportive.
Cassaggio,
I had some
I totally disagree with you.
students
Maybe you
stop
should
by
strap on a
yesterday
gun
and drop
and
off
camouflage and
letters
see how good
notes
you
of
could do
support
this.
for all of these responders. We put them out for them to see at briefing time and things. That's the kind of support we saw from this community. There will always be criticism. There will always be people who think they can do this job better, and they're entitled to that opinion. What I would tell you is, again, I put my faith in this group of experts, this group of seasoned law enforcement professionals, the dedicated men and women, not only of the Pennsylvania State Police, but of all of the other partner agencies who went out there every day. I'll put my money on them any day of the week. And I believe the community supported them and continues to.
Will he be charged with escape, and when will those charges be filed?
We'll be discussing with the district attorney what, if any, charges will be filed. But for right now, again, there is a commitment, and he is going to begin serving his life sentence at a state correctional institution.
What was his sister now?
She is in the deportation proceedings. That will proceed. I'm sorry?
You know where Cavalcante got the Eagles hoodie from?
I do not.
Other than the rifle, what did he have with him? Did he have anything else?
Just the clothing and things that he was wearing.
Did he attempt to shoot? Did he attempt to try to disengage?
He did not have an opportunity to, no, sir.
Officers were on the ground as it converged.
I don't have an exact number, but looking at the teams we were sending in there, in the immediate vicinity was probably 20 to 25.
And can you tell us more about what those 20 to 25 look like? Like, did they have specific armor?
So there you
Yes,
have a
they were
successful
tactical- they were
conclusion
tactical
to this
team,
manhunt without any
camouflage,
injuries. In the words of the
form,
DA, this is a great day in Chester County. Our nightmare is finally over, and the good guys won with the capture of 34-year-old convicted killer Danelo Cavalcante. I want to bring in Trevor Alt, who's been with us from the beginning. Trevor, I think we can all say with confidence that there is just tremendous relief throughout this community there in Chester County.
Absolutely, Lindsay, and we've been hearing that from the residents here, how disruptive this search has been, especially with how centered it has been. Only about 25, 30 miles from Chester County Prison. There were a lot of people that were expressing their frustration and their fear as they are seeing not only the fact that an escaped murderer was potentially surrounding their home, but also law enforcement moving in and out of the community constantly. And we're talking about upwards of 500 law enforcement officers, and this search finally coming to a conclusion after nearly 2 weeks. And I think there are a few things that are very telling. Number one, how difficult this terrain is. This is a heavily wooded area. There are a lot of state parks, a lot of crowded fields, cornfields, and things like that. It is very easy to hide, even if Cavalcante is spotted. And we know there were more than a dozen confirmed sightings. He still was able to hide over and over again. But it also speaks to the fact that law enforcement was steadfast, even as he would slip away, and occasionally he broke through their perimeter. That happened on.
So, folks, I think that today what we almost do, and you don't have to do it, but I'm just suggesting you do this, is that this is a great day. And I think we should celebrate his capture. And there he is walking with the Border Patrol agents there. I think we should absolutely celebrate his capture. There he is in handcuffs. He's not going to be able to hurt anyone. He's, he's done. He's going into maximum. He's going into maximum security, and he's not going to hurt anyone, believe me. And all the people now that want to criticize law enforcement, oh, they were incompetent, they were this, they were that. Okay, go ahead, go home and go watch a football game and critique the football game, because no one's listening to you here.
Takes great pride in the technology, in the canines, and in all of the assets that were brought to bear here. We ask a lot of the public through their tax dollars to support the police, to support law enforcement at every level. And they got a front row seat here in Chester County and across Pennsylvania to see the extraordinary work not only these individuals do, but the great technology we're able to bring to bear to ultimately capture dangerous suspects like this. The public should take great pride in that. And then to the gentleman's question there in the suit, folks, whoever had their Eagles hoodie stolen, if you could let us know, I'll do my best to get you one of those new Kelly Green ones, okay?
Governor, can I just ask you, 2 escapes, 2 different individuals from the same prison in the same year. What do you say to people who live in this area to see what is happening at the Chester County Prison, and what are you guys going to do moving forward to try and prevent this kind of thing from ever happening again?
Here in Pennsylvania, our system may be a little different from other states. We have state correctional institutions, and then we have county jails. In this case, the Chester County Jail is run by Chester County officials. They'll answer those questions as to what occurred and what changes are ultimately going to be made. Certainly, the State Department of Corrections will be here to assist in any reviews or in any other work that they need done to make sure that that facility is secured. They obviously have a lot of work to do there, and I'm confident under the leadership of Chairwoman Moskowitz and District Attorney Ryan and other leaders in the county, they'll get that done.
Is it estimated that the cost of the manhunt is about $1 million a day?
I can't, put a price tag on it. We'll do our best to make sure that whatever can be tallied up is and is shared with the public. At the state level, I can't speak for our local or federal partners.
Governor, you mentioned the pattern of what time of day you would travel. Were there any other patterns that you picked up on that were key in tracking him, containing him, and then ultimately catching him?
There were a number of things that that we picked up on, and he didn't follow the same pattern every single time. Seemed to like to travel via creek beds. He liked other paths of less resistance, wood lines, power lines, gas lines, that type of thing. And that's actually fairly normal. Nobody wants to have to force their way through very heavy underbrush and things. And again, I mentioned the time of day, but all of that combined with some outstanding work and technology is really what brought this to a successful conclusion.
How many people in Chester County are grateful for your efforts? I know you mentioned on Friday you were asked about containment and capture. Ultimately, that tactic was successful. Anyone that you would like to thank at this time? I know Land Hope donated breakfast yesterday. Wawa has been big help with lunch. Any small businesses you'd like to thank? And then again, the people of Chester County.
I will tell you that we have been compiling a list, and I don't want to stand here right now because I will absolutely miss many. Some of those that you mentioned have been outstanding supporters of us, and I thank them. We will publish a list of all who helped us out, because we are very, very appreciative. That level of support is really one of the things that allows our people to focus on the task at hand and to try and be successful even quicker than we might otherwise have to be. When I gave you all a tour of the facility in here, I talked a lot about logistics and the support that's required to field a team of 3, 4, 5 or more hundred law enforcement officers out there. It takes a lot to put it out there. And so the help of all of those folks, the help of the average person who stopped by and dropped off a case of water was very much appreciated, not only for the case of water, but also just for the kind thoughts of and words of support that they always included when they dropped that off.
And contain the capture, so that tactic was the way to go.
Yes, as I said, we always take a multifaceted approach. And so depending on the circumstances, there's always a contingency, and we're always prepared to move in whatever direction we need to.
Were officers wearing body cameras and will that footage be released?
I'm sorry.
Were officers wearing any body cameras and will that?
I don't believe any officers on the tactical teams had them on.
What type of aircraft involved here with the heat seeking equipment? Is that a DEA aircraft? Was it fixed wing with their own helicopter? Also, did the arrest happen in South Covington Township?
It was a DEA fixed-wing aircraft. I believe that's South Covington. I would have to look at a map. We were operating in several townships there, but again, it was north of Prizer and west of PA 100.
So where were you when this all happened? And do you have a personal feeling of satisfaction for 14 days of very long, hard work? How does this feel for you this morning?
I was here in the command post when the capture occurred, and yes, I'm very happy that this occurred and that no one was injured. You know, it brought a new level of danger for all of our people out here in the field when we knew that he obtained a firearm. And so for me, the biggest sense of relief is that no one in the community was harmed and no law enforcement officer was harmed either. So that's the win.
Sir, were you mobile the whole time, or was he put up a base camp?
No, I believe he was more mobile the entire time.
Sir, what prison is he being transported to?
We're not releasing that, but it is going to be a state correctional facility. And once he is secure there, I believe they will release where he is being housed.
Lieutenant Colonel Bivens, you said that multiple people attempted to help him. Did he have any means of communication to reach out to those people and coordinate with them as to where he was?
He did not at the time that we captured him. Yes, ma'am.
Force was authorized unless he surrendered and was other people not surrendered. Did he try to use his gun in any way this morning? I know he had it on, but also, what about the decision not to use fatal force, given that he, I understand, did not surrender?
Well, as I addressed a few minutes ago, yes, he had the firearm with him. Yes, he was a threat. He did not have an opportunity. I believe he was taken by surprise, and I believe the canine played a large role in him not being able to utilize that firearm. What I would tell you is, again, that it is our last choice, our last preference to use lethal force. And so while there were other options, the team did the responsible thing, did what they're trained and what we expect, and they used other options. And again, lethal force is always the last option.
He's going in for questioning. What kinds of information you're going to be trying to get from him? Like what kinds of questions will he ask?
We have the criminal investigators that have been involved in this, everything from the escape up through the time that he has been on the run. I'm sure all of that will be included in their list of questions. Whether he'll choose to talk, I have no idea, and that will be his choice.
Can you assure and guarantee the public that this man will not escape again, because clearly he has the ability to do that? Can you say that now?
I can assure you he will not escape while he is in our custody. He will be turned over to a state correctional institution. I have every confidence that they will be able to safely and securely house him as well.
Lieutenant Colonel, was he in the perimeter of the perimeter that you had outlined yesterday?
He was.
He was.
Yes, sir.
How close to the edge of the perimeter was he? Where in the perimeter?
It was within the perimeter, and he would have been within a few hundred yards of the eastern edge of the perimeter.
Colonel, in terms of the public being involved, there was videos surfacing vigilantes in Chester County trying to get involved in this case. Moving forward, if something like this happens again, what would you tell the public in regards to getting involved in a case like this?
I would ask them the same thing that I asked this time, and that is, please don't come out and try to become involved like that. You potentially take away resources that would otherwise be spent on the search trying to deal with those individuals, and we don't want one of them to get hurt unintentionally.
How far was the capture from where the burglary happened last night?
Within a quarter mile. It wasn't a burglary. It was an alarm, by the way. But
once processed, any idea in ballpark time until transfer?
It depends on whether he is cooperative and is interviewed. That could take minutes to hours, but I don't have the answer yet. Whether he's, I'm not aware of that.
Sir, do we know if his sister and mother entered the country via Puerto Rico as well?
I don't believe his mother is here, and I don't have that information immediately available here about where they entered. As I said, his sister, though, is in the process of being deported now.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Colonel, after everything that you've been through, seen with Cavalcante,
once that interpreter is there, do you plan on having a conversation with him, asking him anything about all this?
No, the investigators are quite competent. They'll gather the information that we believe is important if they're able to, and I'm confident that that everything we need will be gathered in that way. There's no reason for me to have a personal discussion with him.
What's the message to anybody else who tried to escape?
Well, I think it's a very bad idea, obviously, and we will be here should something like this occur again. We'll put the team back together, and we'll be right back out after them. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
There you have it. Mickey Mantle, thank you so much for the 20-pound.
I've been listening to Pennsylvania authorities giving the details of Danelo Cavalcante's capture.
Guys, I'm going to take them off the screen right now. I think this is a day that we should all rejoice that A, no one got hurt. B, law enforcement did their job under intense circumstances and intense questioning by the press. I mean, there was that one idiot. I've heard him on every press conference. The first question, he called on the first idiot from the press that said, "Oh, why do you think they took a photo op? Are you upset with that?" He tried to make an issue out of something that's not an issue. They caught this guy after 14 days. No one got hurt. Yes, they're human beings. They want to celebrate. They want a memento of catching this guy. And this dirtbag from the press, I don't even know who he was. I recognized his voice because it was the same guy every time that was asking these like negative questions, putting a negative spin on this. And I'm glad that this Lieutenant Colonel Bevins, what a guy, man. I said early on, that guy, I would follow him into hell. He has the most competence. He engendered competence and engendered everyone to sort of say, this is who I want leading this. He had such an air of professionalism to him, and I thought he was fantastic. And when people start criticizing, especially people from the press that know nothing about this, all they know is, oh, it's 14 days. Let me criticize. And you want to criticize someone? Criticize the prison. The prison was total incompetence, and you have to say that. There's no way you can defend the prison and what occurred there. It's horrific. Let me put on the take of another network on this, just because. And this is John Miller, who I have a lot of respect for, former NYPD. Let me play a little bit of this here.
We're to some degree surprised over the course of the last 2 weeks that it had taken this long, even though the search area seemed to be not 10 states wide. You never really were, though. Why not?
Because if you look at the stats, most people who break out of prison are literally arrested within 24 hours, and most of them walking on the road away from the prison. This was a person who had a plan. This was a person who had the intestinal fortitude to undergo many challenges while on the run. His mother told us about a lot of that. But
these are, John, sorry to interrupt. These are live pictures. This is the first we are all seeing of
Well,
Danelo
obviously, this
Cavalcante.
isn't
He
live.
in
This is
custody.
what they reported.
John, walk
this
us through
before.
what you see here.
I see a SWAT team, which is probably the
It's
people
like, what does
who
he
took
see?
him into
Does he see
custody.
anything different than what we see?
And I see a guy who has a change of clothes that we're not familiar with, which is a new sweatshirt and a dark pair of pants. There were reports that a backpack was found overnight that had things in it, clothing items and so on, that may have been his. Is that possibly what spurred them into a certain area? But he has been doing these kind of home invasions and burglaries and garage, siftings, trying to find different outfits to keep changing his appearance. And, our last reporting was he was shirtless. So he clearly has had these stashes while he's hiding out, but you can tell even as he's walking, he's a guy who's worn down from this flight.
We've talked about the scale of the federal and state resources. What we're looking at right now, you mentioned it's a SWAT team. Do we have any sense of who there's different uniforms along with the SWAT officials that are there, who we're looking at, why they're.
All right, he's just restating things that we already know. Just to recap, according to Lieutenant Colonel Bivens, what put them in the closest area to Danelo Cavalcante was a fixed wing aircraft using thermal imaging. Remember that term, thermal imaging. And they had a bead on him, exactly where his location. But as that occurred, as they had the thermal imaging GPS on exactly his location, thunder and lightning hit. And the fixed wing aircraft had to get out of the sky. It was too dangerous to stay up in the air. But before he left the area, he was able to radio the ground troops to move in and create, let's use the word again, perimeter, a much tighter perimeter around the fugitive. Now they've got, they're practically on top of him, all right? And he's laying down in the brush with a .22 caliber rifle. When you think about how dangerous that was and could have been had he decided to perhaps shoot it out with the police. But guess what? They had a canine. The canine ran into the woods and bit him in the head. And, if you know anything about, have you ever seen a perp with a canine go after him? They are terrified of dogs, especially these dogs when they do their job. They're not the friendliest dogs, I'll put it that way. So he tried to resist, but he was met with overwhelming force that this little 5'2" guy that they've blown up to be this giant, 5 foot tall, 120 pounds. He had no other option but to surrender. Yeah, well, he didn't surrender. He was taken in forcibly, but luckily, as you heard Colonel Bivens say, they did not have to resort to deadly physical force, of course, which is the very last resort. And that was a great thing because they don't want to have to use deadly physical force. And they didn't. They brought him in. And then, of course, they took a photo op. Oh my God, press. Is that horrible? Guys trying to make an issue of that. That reporters like that, really, what is their purpose in life? To be shit stirrers? I mean, sometimes when my team would make a big arrest, we'd take a picture with the perp. Is there something wrong with that? This is the press that really has basically no morals. A lot of these people, and these questions. I don't know. It just irks me. If you hadn't noticed, it irks me a little bit. And, this Lieutenant Colonel Bivens, I can't say enough about him. Consummate professional. Just even in the capture, he took a second seat to his boss. The governor went up on the microphone first. The guy's unbelievable. And let me just play a little more of this here.
There will always be people who think they can do this job better, and they're entitled to.
Amen. Amen. He's talking about the press. There's always people that think they can do this, or people with no credentials whatsoever. They think they can do this job better. You tell them, Lieutenant Colonel Bevins.
To that opinion. What I would tell you is, again, I put my faith in this group of experts, this group of seasoned law enforcement professionals, the dedicated men and women, not only of the Pennsylvania State Police, but of all of the other partner agencies who went out there every day. I'll put my money on them any day of the week. And I believe the community supported them and continues to.
Will he be charged with escape, and when will the charges be brought?
Will be discussed.
When you think about it, like this question, will he be charged with escape? The guy's doing life in prison. An escape charge it'll be included, really. Yeah, can they charge it? I don't think they want to bring this guy to court. He's an escape risk. Yeah, we'll include that in his sentence. That's so important to will he be charged with escape? Yes. That gets you about 6 months in prison. So we'll call the first 6 months the escape charges.
With the district attorney, what, if any, charges will be filed. But for right now, again, there is a commitment, and he is going to begin serving his life sentence at a state correctional institution.
When was his sister now?
She is in the deportation proceedings. That will proceed as had been initiated. I'm sorry?
You know where Cavalcante got the Eagles hoodie from?
I do not.
Other than the rifle, what did he have with him? Did he have anything else?
Just the clothing and things that he was wearing.
Did he attempt to shoot? Did he attempt to try to disengage?
He did not have an opportunity to, no,
How many
sir.
officers were on the ground as converged?
I don't have an exact number, but looking at the teams we were sending in there, in the immediate vicinity was probably 20 to 25.
And can you tell us more about what those 20 to 25 look like? Like, did they have specific armor?
So there you
Yes,
have it, a
they were
successful
tactical.
conclusion.
Folks. Again, to recap, what targeted law enforcement? What pinpointed the location of Danelo Cavalcante was a fixed-wing aircraft utilizing thermal imaging, which gave them an exact GPS coordinates and as he was moving. However, the fixed-wing aircraft, this was last night, had to land because of the thunder and lightning. But before the fixed-wing aircraft, and I believe the plane belonged to the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, they gave GPS coordinates to the Border Patrol and other law enforcement members on the ground. So they initiated a extremely tight perimeter around the fugitive, which enabled them at some point to send the dog in. Send the dog in. Who let the dogs out? They did. The Border Patrol let the dogs out, and he went right to Danelo Cavalcante, who was crawling in thick brush with his .22 caliber rifle. Did not have a chance to resist, did not have a chance to fire a shot. The dog bit him on the head. He tried to resist. That was fruitless. He was taken into custody. And the Border Patrol took a photo op, and this little weasel from the press had something to say about that. The way all weasels, I'm not calling all people from the press weasels, but this guy was, it was the same guy throughout this manhunt, who was always asking the most obnoxious questions. And of course, he's a member of the press. He can ask whatever he likes, but this is the picture that we all like. It's the picture that we wanted to see. We wanted to see him in custody. We wanted to see him. Look at, I guess you could see the top of his head. There's a little bloody bite mark on the top of his head there. I'm sure they'll give him a whittle Band-Aid because he's a whittle guy. And that's what we all wanted to see. We all wanted to see this two-time murderer, this is a prison escapee. We wanted to see him in custody. And there's the picture of him in custody. So, yeah, this is a great day. And there's nothing that we could say negative about this.
Or to some degree surprised over the course of the last 2 weeks that it had taken this long, even though the search area seemed to be not 10 states wide. You never really were, though. Why not?
Because if you
Well, we played this before, folks. I thought they might have something new to say, but no, it's so that there you have it. Yeah, great job by law enforcement. I know there's those out there that are saying, "Oh, why did it take 2 weeks?" It was not an easy thing, And look at, when you think about that and you question that, look at the technology they had. Thermal imaging is ultimately what led to pinpointing his location. That technology that they use against terrorists, that they use against major drug dealers, drug traffickers, because this fixed wing plane that they used that ultimately spotted Danelo Cavalcante, this fixed wing aircraft belonged to the DEA. And again, amazing, just an amazing job by law enforcement. And again, if you want to look at the negative part of this, the negativity, I think you have to look at the escape from the prison. I think that's really the major faux pas by law enforcement. I don't think you can really criticize the hunt, the search, It was by the numbers. And if anyone wants to criticize it, look at this Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens from the state police. And if you can tell me that he's not one of the most competent law enforcement people that you've seen work a case like this, then I don't think you know what you're talking about. Maui Swift, he's lucky is doing his time in the U.S. and not Brazil. Maui, I think you're probably right. I think they would treat you a lot harsher in Brazil than they'll treat you in this country. Mel 077, I live in Saskatchewan, Canada. I think the law enforcement and all agencies did an amazing job. I think you're right. Michael, Sergeant Cannon, I want to give a shout out to all officers that were still working that community, responding to everyday police calls of service, accidents, thefts, etc. Michael, you're so correct. When a major event like this goes on, law enforcement does not stop doing their day-to-day job. There's still people that have to handle that. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then please subscribe to us. Go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us that thumbs up, ring that bell. We've been covering this case from the very beginning. It sort of got the attention of everyone in this country and perhaps internationally. This manhunt for this little whittle prison escapee, and we've all seen the video of him escaping numerous times, and it's such a great thing. Again, you talk about you hear politicians say we're spiking the football. I think it is it's time. You can spike the football. It's time for all these teams to go have a nice lunch, have a few beers, and celebrate, because Keith Casaggio, FLIR Systems Thermal Imaging, is fixed just about every fixed wing and rotary aircraft in the U.S. and in the world at this point, Bill. Keith, I'm just pointing out that this plane belonged to the DEA. And I don't know if the Pennsylvania State Police have their own tactical plane. I'm sure they have their own helicopters with this technology. But we're definitely pointing out that this technology and all the technology that they used to find this guy is what ultimately led to his capture, and we applaud that. And when even the governor of Pennsylvania mentioned, this is why you fund the police. This is why you fund the police budgets, because when society needs to take a bad guy off the street, this is what you need. This is the response you expect. You don't expect law enforcement to say, oh, geez, we can't work overtime. There's no money. Oh, geez, we don't have a fixed wing airplane with thermal imaging because they cut the budget. El Boogie, I do not agree with them being one of the best in the country. With all due respect, I'm a true New Yorker. The prison lost them and they did their job. El Boogie, of course, the NYPD is the best in the world. I think Pennsylvania did an outstanding job. I would not take away from their moment in the sunshine. Everyone involved, all the law enforcement agencies did a fantastic job. Something, let's allow them their moments of celebration, because something, tomorrow they go back doing their job, doing what they do every day, protecting the citizenry of Pennsylvania. So let's allow them their moment in the sunshine.
Right. This is all a developing situation, so this could be a number of things, but it looks as if it could be him. But as you said, in the different photos that we've seen,
that is him. It doesn't look like him. It is him.
Now, and it just
they're
shows
taking their photo up. This is what the guy in the press didn't like.
This manhunt over the past 14
he didn't
days.
like that. Look at Cavalcante. Oh, geez, I'm in a yearbook photo.
Seen anything like that?
Where they're posing for a photo.
Except,
oh, the press is so annoyed at this.
What?
I also want to note that the state police have put out about a couple minutes ago a tweet saying that the press conference is now at 9:30.
They got him. That's what's important. There's the photo op that all the people in the press. I'll cut her. This is the photo op. Look at the dog. It's the photo op that everyone in the press is objecting to. Oh my God, the photo op. Oh my God, how hard. I can't, what is wrong with them? I really, absolutely, what is wrong with those people that they're objecting to a photo op? Oh my God, look at the police taking a photo op. How horrific. How horrific. How could they do that to this poor whittle man, Unbelievable. You're right. 100% right. NH women, they deserve a photo op. They deserve, now it's Miller time, as they say, Mel 077, they deserve to pose. I would love to have a copy of that photo, Michael. Yeah, me too. Well, it's going to be on all the newspapers, I'm sure. The press somehow will obtain a copy of that photo, and they'll circulate it around. I'm sure it'll be Hey Jude, number one. Hey, police off the cuff, Bill Mods in chat. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Good to see you. Hey Jude. So folks, I think that's about our report for today. I potentially may come on again later this afternoon if there's new breaking information about this, some interesting information. Right now, I think everyone in law enforcement, everyone that was part of this needs to really, you can spike the football. You can absolutely spike the football because this was a great arrest, a great effort. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York City metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD member of the service who is now an outstanding defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Besides being a fantastic defense attorney, Joe is a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast, and we really appreciate him. And folks, thank you so much. I know so many people were covering this story, and so many people went live. Lula Morocco beat best photo ever. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Mel 077 giving a picture of your dog there. So yeah, I'm just one of many, many people that went live at this time. I want to thank all you folks that shared this hour and 22 minutes with me. As I said, if there's new information to report later, I perhaps will come on later. But from Police Off the Cuff, I'm retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon. Have a great day. God bless. And we can spike the footballs. It's Miller time. The capture of Danelo Cavalcante.
One episode just ain't enough.